Hello and welcome to your weekly roundup of all the latest news and ramble about the world of electric cars from the team at electrifying.com. This week, we're going to be chatting about Citroen, which has taken things up another notch when it comes to being a bit bonkers. I'll be talking about a car that I can't actually tell you about yet, so that will be tricky. And we'll be telling you all about the new Rotary Club. Welcome to the Kilowatt Half Hour. I'm Ginny Buckley, and today on the podcast we have got Nicola. Hello, Nick. How are you?
Hey, Dennis.
Have you? Oh, okay. I need to talk about what you're wearing a bit later on, but in the meantime, let's say
We-
hello to Tom.
We don't have to discuss that.
No, I think we do. I think we do have to discuss that. You've come from manoeuvred somewhere. How are you, Tom?
I'm good, thank you.
You're chained to the desk, I can see.
I am. But I've been out this week.
And
we'll talk about later.
That. And we have a very special guest. We have got James Batchelor, aka Batch, aka Batch Match. My on-screen husband from another life.
Oh,
and according to Wikipedia,
hello.
he was your actual husband, wasn't he?
Yes.
Did you know this, Batch?
Well, somebody on Wikipedia says we're an actually married couple.
Yeah.
But not just that. It was on there, it got changed, and it got changed back again, and then it got changed back again, and then it got changed back again. Someone was most insistent that you two were actually married.
Good Lord.
I'm very impressed that you kept going back to check, Tom.
I'll have a word with Mother later on. So yeah. Anyway, lovely to be on. Lovely to be on. Thank you.
Oh, it's so nice to have you. So we've got a bit of a reunion because Nicola, Batch and we all worked for another company in a previous life, didn't we?
Yes.
So it's just nice.
Although I wasn't at the same time as you two.
No, you followed on from me. You were the lady that replaced me.
Yeah, you were the Ginny replacement, really. And apparently, the word has it, engagement levels went through the roof after Ginny went. So that's due to Nicola. So,
Batch, I think we're losing you from the podcast. Hello,
what happens when you wear tight jeans?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Batch. It's been lovely to have you on.
It's chinos. I always wear chinos, not jeans. How dare you? So anyway.
Right, should we just talk about cars instead of clothes? Should we move on?
Yeah.
So, Tom, let's start with you because you've been off to join the Rotary Club this week, haven't you?
Yeah, so I drove the Mazda MX-30 R-EV. Now, we've all driven the Mazda MX-30 and it's got the normal electric one and it's got a teeny tiny little battery and you'd be lucky to get 100 miles out of it in the winter. And then it charges really slowly. But if you ever open the bonnet of an MX-30, there was this yawning gap. Literally, I could hide under the bonnet of a Mazda MX-30. And they always said they were going to put an engine in there, a petrol engine. And they've finally done it. And it's a rotary engine, which is what Mazda are kind of famous for. And everyone else has given up on rotary engines. But Mazda are saying, no, we're going to carry on. In theory, it's quite a good idea because they're small and compact and they can be made more reliable because they've got a reputation for braking because it's running at a constant speed if it's just generating electricity, which is what it's doing in this MX-30. And it works, but just not very well.
I sense a but. Go on, let's talk about the not very well bit.
Well, I don't really get it. I mean, I can understand people who want a range extender car because if they're new to electric and they panic about where they're going to be able to charge and things, it's a nice, attractive backup that you can pour petrol into the thing and it will carry on going. I get that. But it's just not very efficient. So if you just run it purely on electric and it will do 53 miles on electric only, then it's got an efficiency rate of 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which is the same as a Rolls-Royce Spectre. So if you're running it every day backwards and forwards, it's not very, and you'll get almost twice that out of something like an electric Corsa. And then you think, well, okay, well, what's it like on petrol? So you run it on petrol. So if you've run out of your electricity or you're one of those people who has a plug-in hybrid just for the tax reasons and you never plug it in and you just use the petrol engine, it's going to do 29 mpg. and that's the official figure. Now, 29 mpg is the same as a petrol Range Rover. So you've got a car which, when it's an electric car, is the same as economical as a Rolls Royce, and when it's a petrol car, it's as economical as a Range Rover, but it's the same size as like a Vauxhall Mocha. So I don't get it. If you combine the two and you do a journey on both, then you get, I mean, I got sort of 60 mpg out of it, but that's no better than a Honda Jazz hybrid. So I just don't get it.
That was very eloquently put, Tom. And, you know, the negatives are shining through there, but it's got a cork interior. And that means it's very, very cool.
That's
doesn't
very
it?
true.
No.
Says the man who
my
is very
question,
fond of red chinos.
Yeah, I am fond of red chinos. But my question, sorry, if I'm talking too much, do say. But my question to Tom is, we've already been here, haven't we, with the BMW i3 REX. Now, is it better or worse or just as good as that car?
Well, the BMW, I mean, they don't sell that car anymore because it didn't make much sense for them. And people didn't really need it because the electric battery got better and you could do 200 miles on in an electric car alone. So it didn't make much sense. But I think the BMW was less refined because once they used a 2-cylinder motorbike engine, and when that kicked in, it was a bit noisy. And
it was quite noisy, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the Mazda, it is quite refined. It's very strange when you're driving on the motorway and the engine kicks in. A couple of us commented independently that it sounds like someone's using a drill on their masonry. You know, they're putting in some big cables or something through the wall about 2 rooms away. So it's a really kind of, you're like, what's that? Is something wrong with the car? No, that's the noise the engine makes.
It's supposed to sound like that.
Yeah, they also pipe in an artificial thing to make it sound a bit more sporty. It's odd.
You know how on the website over at electrifying.com, if you haven't been over there recently, where we have all our full reviews and where Tom's review of this car will be, we always have like a Ginny says and a Nicola says or a Tom says and a Nikki says. I could sum up that car in 3 words and it would say clutching at straws. Because that's what Mazda are doing with this, aren't they? They're just clutching at straws to try and
I don't
do
know
something,
why they didn't
anything.
Yeah, I mean, that rotary engine thing, I don't know why they just don't like cut an MX-5 engine in half or something and use that, because it would be more efficient and probably more reliable. I mean, I don't know about the rotary engine,
May I
the
suggest
new one, but
that
the old
they
one.
they actually instead perhaps put their focus into making an electric car that will do more than 90 miles in winter, because that actually might be useful in the first place. They're not really nailing it when it comes to electrification, are they? Let's face it.
No, it just seemed like a bad solution to a problem that wasn't really there. It's a bit like sort of, I don't know, saying you can cook your Sunday roast in an oven that runs on electricity, or you can cook it in one that runs on gas. But we've come up with a new one, and it uses candles or something. It will still do the job, but just not as efficiently. Or well, I don't see the point. I mean, unless you're a candle fan.
Oh, no,
unless you're a candle fan. That's really funny.
So, Batch, what have you been up to? What have you been?
I've been sitting at my desk like Tom has a little bit, really, and just playing through a lot of news and features and various bits and bobs, because that's what I tend to do. I tend to work a little bit in the background for electrifying, so I'm sort of doing little bits here and there. And so I haven't been out too much. But last week, me and Nicola were driving the Citroen Ami Buggy, weren't we? So, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I know there's a difference of opinion about the Ami.
What do you think about it? Do you hate it? Don't start this fight. Do you hate it?
No, I love it. I love it. I do love it.
Okay.
I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. We know it makes no sense whatsoever. It's very expensive for what it is. It's hugely flawed. But I mean, come on, you've just got to love it. I think, because it just shows Citroen have got a sense of humour, haven't they? And I think it's just a great little thing, and especially in buggy form. It's just you can't not drive it with a smile on your face, can you?
Yeah, I agree. It's a stupid little thing. It's a stupid machine, but I love every inch of it. I love the fact that the doors are like an entrance to a funfair ride, And I love the fact that the seats aren't seats. They are definitely just chairs with a little bit of cushioning on them. Love that. I love that the steering wheel comes with a rubbish little bum bag. I think it's brilliant. There's so much charm to it. It's a
And for
cracking little thing.
doors, you've got gates, haven't you? Because the doors, they remind me of those
Yeah.
gates that you know when you walk into Sainsbury's or Tesco's or Waitrose if you're Ginny, and you get those gates that you walk through. So that's what that reminded me of in the Ami Buggy.
And what about you, Nick? What have you been driving?
Yesterday spent the day with Tom. It was lovely, actually. What I've learned is that Tom lives in what we can only describe as Leaf Street. So Tom is very, very proud of his Nissan Leaf. He's had it for a very, very long time and he loves it. And essentially, from Tom moving into this village, getting himself a Nissan Leaf, someone else went, "Hey, what's that?" And they then got themselves a Nissan Leaf. And then I spent the day just driving around Tom's little village, meeting lots of people that all own a Nissan Leaf because their neighbours have bought a Leaf and then their friends have bought a Leaf. And I kid you not, you can't even make this up. There are 3 houses, right, where there is a leaf, a leaf, a leaf, because she bought one, so he bought one because of that, and then they bought one because of that, and then there's someone else who bought a leaf, and it's complete leaf madness in Tom's village, and I love it.
It's such a good story, but I think what it brings it back to that thing that we know that people have got loads of worries about switching to electric cars. And I know that all 4 of us drive loads of electric cars. We live with them at home. We've all had our pain points over the years, but we're kind of used to it now. We just get on with it. But I think if you're somebody, and this is really new technology, isn't it? We're asking people to change loads of habits, and none of us like doing that. We're creatures of habit, aren't we? Nobody wants to do anything different. And I think that by having that chat with somebody in the pub over a pint, going, "Oh yeah, so okay, so you do what? Oh, and you don't get, you don't get stranded. And it's actually not that expensive to run when you're off peak tariff." That really is, I think, such a reassuring way for people to find out about electric cars. And I think, that's just shows you it's just word of mouth. It's just spread, hasn't it?
Well, I have to say the favourite neighbour of Tom's that I met was a really lovely old dude named Ivor, right? What a legend this guy is. Okay, so the way his brain went, he had on his windowsill a tiny little daisy that was powered by solar power. So it sits on his windowsill, and the solar power makes the daisy kind of dance like this, right? And then it made him go, well, if the solar power can make the daisy do that, surely the solar power can do more. He's got solar panels now, right, on the top of his garage. Got himself a Nissan Leaf because he does very minimal miles every day because it's him and his lovely wife and his plants and he just potters around and then pops to the shops. He basically runs his car completely running on solar power. And it's so lovely that it all started from this little daisy dancing on his windowsill that he went, I've got an idea. He was so lovely.
But also, Tom, you do realise you don't work for Nissan anymore. You don't have to do their PR for them. You do know this, don't you?
But it works, it's everybody is really pleased with their Leafs. They love them.
There's a lot of electric cars in that village. A lot.
Let's stay with the subject of Nissan at the moment and just about people loving cars. Because one of the things, so we had to do a car swap this week. So I've been driving a Skoda Enyaq for about 6 months, and I'm not even going to keep going on about it because I've talked about it quite a lot on this podcast because I really do love that car a lot.
Great.
And Tom has had a Nissan Aria for about the same amount of time. And we swapped cars, and then we phoned each other and were like, I hate your car. I want my car back. Your car doesn't ride like my car. It wasn't quite as vicious as that, but it's a really interesting thing that the things that I love about my Skoda Enyaq were not positives to Tom. And the things that Tom liked about how his Nissan Aria, rode and how it handled and how it steered were not necessarily characteristics that I like in a car. And it just got us thinking about how actually it can be really hard, can't it, to review cars sometimes because it ultimately comes down to what you personally want from a car. Mm-hmm. And there are so few bad cars these days. Back in the day, there used to be cars that were just bad. And there just aren't that many bad cars anymore, are there? I don't know what you think about that on Batch, whether you just find yourselves completely disagreeing with people's views of the car because it's just not necessarily what you're looking for.
No, I do. I've had really quite violent arguments with other colleagues when they don't agree with me about cars, um, and which really makes me think this is why, like test drives, when you go to a car dealership, the test drive is really important, and it shouldn't just be a 10-minute squirt round the block. It should be a day or 2 days living with something, and and I know there's a lot of discussion about electric cars. They, quite a lot of them are similar. The technology is very similar between the cars, and in the future, it will be very easy to place your order online, and then the car just turns up at your house, and you've bought it. I just don't think we're there yet, and I think the idea of having the test drive, living with it. Do you like the ride? Is the infotainment system really easy to use? How easy is it to get your dog in and out the boot? All of those things are really important.
Yeah, it's such a good a good comment to make that, because it is that thing that it was just so remarkable that as we were having like a to and fro conversation, weren't we, Tom? And I was saying, I just don't like it. It's just too it's too bouncy. It's picking up all the potholes on the roads. Like didn't like it at all. And you were like, but that's comfortable. No, that's comfortable. And I was saying, oh, the steering's too light. No, it's not. Your steering's dreadful on the Aria. I don't know. It's interesting.
I think a lot of it is if you drive a car for a long time, you get used to it, and then that becomes your norm. And then if you get into something else, you think that's possibly bad. But also, I mean, my car's just better. I can understand I can understand that some of the luxuries you feel spoilt by Ginny, and maybe you feel that that some of the ENIACs.
I have actually driven both cars, and I feel like I can sit in the middle, and I can find holes with both of your cars. I mean, I drove Tom's Aria, right? And the first thing that bugged me is the fact that as soon as you sit in the, I said this to Tom, I was like, that's really annoyed me. As soon as you sit in the car, the chair doesn't move, right? Stays in its position. And I have to stretch my leg to get my foot on the brake to to put the power on, and then the chair moves into place. Whereas in my Genesis GV60, which I'm very much enjoying at the moment, I sit in the car, the moment the door is shut, my chair moves forward, ready for me to put the foot on the brake to switch it on. It's a little simple thing that really bugged me in that area. That really bugged me.
It would be a lot easier if you had a manual seat adjustment, wouldn't it, really? Just go between your legs, pull the lever, pull it forward. There we are, job done. No, there's electric rubbish, honestly.
No.
Well, the ENIAC has electric seats, but it's one of the very few luxuries it does have. It's. I was like, how do I get the boot to go down? Well, I have to pull it down myself. Oh.
I love both of them. I love both of them. But if I had to choose, it would be the ENIAC for me. I love the ENIAC. Although I do have to say, if you are looking for a car that can tow extremely well, and I say this with my Tow Car of the Year judge hat on, the Nissan Aria is the best and recently won the Tow Car of the Year competition. So if you need to tow stuff, you've got to go for
This is like, not saying that the Aria is a bad car. The Aria is an excellent car. I think it's got a really lovely interior. And I completely get you on that, Tom. It's nice and luxurious, and it all, materials are lovely. But for me, I thought the brakes were really soft when it wasn't in e-pedal. I thought it struggled to get a bit settled on the road. It didn't feel massively composed. And I did think, okay, I've obviously been driving the Aria the ENIAC for a long time. But, we're in and out of different cars all the time. And I think ultimately it does just come back to the fact that, we all have different opinions. And going back to what Batch said, it's really important, don't just buy a car purely online without having sat in it and driven it, because you might be in for a shock. Because we can't even agree amongst ourselves.
No. Well, do you remember we had a major disagreement on the ID3 and how the ID3 rides? Because you completely disagree with everybody, don't you? I think it rides quite nice.
I was vindicated recently because I was on a launch, because this is with some journalists from another publication, and I was like, this has become my bugbear now, the ID3, because I was literally the only member of the team that was like, no, I'm just not keen on the ride. And somebody said to me from another publication, I completely agree. I don't like the way it rides either. I was vindicated.
Who was it? Name drop. Who was it?
It was John McElroy from Auto Express.
I
James,
can't
you put
trust
your
it.
hand
You
up.
can't
Go
trust
on,
John.
go on.
Well, now I was going to say, I don't like the ride in it either. I think it's too bouncy and just all over the place. Honestly, I do. And I think, but to me, that just sums up that the ID3 has been the most disappointing car I've driven for years. And even with the recent model, it hasn't got any better. And I just feel as though that car was rushed through. None of the problems were ironed out on it. The ride is terrible. The quality is horrible. It's just a nasty car. I'm sorry, VW, but I'm not a fan.
Okay, all right. So we're in the same club batch, obviously. We were taught the same way.
We were.
When we first started off.
That's me banned from driving
I
all
haven't actually driven
VWs.
the new one, so I'm abstaining.
I know. So I actually, on the subject of VW, so I have been to see a secret car this week. So it's a car that I can't really tell you about, but I'm going to tell you a bit about it. So it's this Citroen EC3. So I've been to sort of see that and to film with it ahead of it being launched in a couple of weeks. So I can tell you the stuff because we do already know bits and pieces about it, and obviously it's going to have. We know it will have sort of just under 200 miles of range, something around that. It's going to be priced around sort of 21,500 pounds. They're saying 25,000 euros is what they've said. And I've actually, of course, seen it and prodded around it and poked and had a good look at it. And I do think, we've talked on the podcast, I think it was either last week or the week before, about that awful phrase, it's a game changer. It's, it's a horrible phrase that gets bandied around, isn't it, in the industry? But I do think with this one, it is a game changer because this is a good quality car that has got room for a family in it. And it's going to be, I say affordable in the loosest possible way because I know we start from an extremely high bar with electric cars, but it will be the most affordable electric car on the market when it goes on sale next year. And then it got me thinking that actually VW with the ID2, what's taking them so long, So because that's not going to come to market till like 2025, and I do think that it's actually going to be revealed in about, I think it's the 17th of October, and the video will go live then. And there's an awful lot to say about that car, and it's going to be quite exciting to see what reactions people have to that.
Interesting. Oh, I'm looking forward to see, because if that's the price range they're saying, then you can already, as soon as you said 21, my brain went, oh. Yeah. Because for an EV, that is reasonably priced, as much as it still sounds expensive. That is reasonably priced.
Well, they're saying sub 25,000 euros, and off my kind of rough workings out on a calculator, that's kind of where it will be. And I obviously can't tell you much more than that yet, so I better be quiet in case I break an embargo and say too much, because I don't want to do that. Nicola, you put something out on social this week that made me laugh because you were getting you're really irritated about.
Right. As car people, I don't know if you also spot things in TV and film that just really irritate you when it comes to cars, and you're like, oh, that's really bugged me. So last night I was watching The Morning Show. Very good show on Apple TV, by the way. I'm halfway through season 3. I've still got a couple of episodes to catch up on. It's very good. And it was a big dramatic moment. Reese Witherspoon goes out to the boot of the car, puts her stuff in, and she then physically shuts the boot when it's clearly an electrified boot lid. And you hear the car go, whoa! The car was even complaining about the fact that she couldn't just press the button to shut the boot. Now, I appreciate, in the world of TV and film, they probably didn't want to hear the boot beeping. That's probably what it was. Or maybe to kind of add drama, she needed to shut the boot and look. But when it comes to an electrified boot lid, you just can't. And I watched it, I was like, just press the button, hun. That's what you got to do. It's not difficult. It really bugged me.
You say that they don't want to put the bleep in. But this is another bugbear of mine in TV shows. There are two bugbears. The first one is whenever somebody walks away from a car and they flip the lock button, they all have the same lock, don't they? Beep, beep, like that. And they've dubbed it over. Because I've never heard a car that goes beep, beep. It's just never happened,
Never.
No. And the second thing that drives me mad,
But,
and it's not, it's continuity, isn't it? Because we're car people, you recognise continuity, and I think the worst one of recent times for me, it was like the last episode of Line of Duty or something, and the main character got in a Vauxhall, drove away, and the next shot, a Jaguar pulled up, and she got out of a Jaguar, and it's like, I mean, come on, guys, it's not difficult. Is it? So
it's quite a
I
nice
feel you.
upgrade, isn't it?
I hear you, Nicola. Yeah, I
Do you know
hear
what is? Do you know what is pretty cool though? So so back when I was working on the former channels that we all used to work on, I've spotted because somebody tagged me on Twitter going, "I'm pretty sure you reviewed this car." So actually, an old Press Fleet car, an old Renault Arcana that I
Yeah.
reviewed, is now part of the regular drive arounds on Coronation Street. Don't you know?
Oh.
Yeah, it's now part of the Coronation Street car collection that's just randomly driving around the street. So there we go.
I regularly get people sending me listings from, various car sites for secondhand cars where they say, "Oh, you reviewed this, MGF back in 1990, whenever." I get that quite a lot, which just makes me feel quite depressed because it reminds me of how old I am.
Well, you don't look it.
Don't all leap to defend me, will you?
I just defended you. I just said you don't look it.
Right, we're nearly at our kilowatt half hour, and I just wanted to go through some of the comments. We have some great comments to the podcast, so thank you so much for the support that you've given it. And I know you're listening to it not just on YouTube but on other platforms as well. And we get some brilliant comments. Have we found any comments that we liked? Does anybody want to go with the comments? I've got a couple of comments.
Let me just open up a couple. I mean, my favourites. I mean, we have to mention it for the sake of Manos, who's not here today. That as soon as the Citroen Ami Buggy video went live, somebody commented saying, "Manos be cute as hell," and Manos is very happy with that comment.
Oh,
Manos is cute as hell.
He
We've been
is.
trying to. He's lovely, and we're just. But I was saying to him again today, please come on the podcast. He's like, no, they've not heard me speak. So we'll keep trying. We'll keep trying.
We'll
Tom,
get
have you
him
got
on.
any comments that have caught your eye?
There was the one about your wall, which we can't see today because you're elsewhere. But what was the brilliant comment about you've put back your decoration from 2030 to 2035?
Brilliant.
My personal favourite from the comments was a suggestion that on my wall, which will be painted at some point, I should also stand still above the door, "Build your dreams." Just as a little
Do
reminder to
it.
us all.
yeah.
Do it.
Right. But
we
I
should
quite
probably quickly
like
explain
that.
this for you, Batch, and for anyone else who hasn't seen it. That normally where Ginny does her podcast, there are two like tester pot marks on the back
Yeah.
wall,
I
which
think
have
there's
been
3,
there
isn't there?
for the past 30 years. It's and
Yeah.
they
Well,
now you can't paint them over now. They're your trademark, like your trousers, Batch. The trademark.
Well, as a man of colour, I would say, Ginny, because I have seen it and I've seen the comments, and I personally would go for the dark blue because I think the ochre mustard colour would clash with the cupboard. So that's my colour view there. So take note.
Well, you have a dark blue wall behind you, and actually that is the colour I'm leaning towards, but I'm still waiting for my dad to come down.
Good old.
Oh,
Tom.
Dad's got to do it, right? Of
Yeah.
course, yeah.
Dad's got to do it. I'm not doing it. There was a sort of an interesting comment that came in for me, and it was from somebody in San Diego who'd written a few comments on the podcast and saying, really apologies, they didn't want to come off like a hater. But their point was that, we do talk about all these cars and we're constantly talking about, using cars and new cars and trading cars in for different models. And actually, we really should be thinking about how we own cars and the long-term car ownership and how cars are produced. And it was a really, really thoughtful comment, and I can't find the person's name. I know that it was Karen from San Diego, and it just got me thinking about actually something that we probably don't talk about enough, and we should mention on the podcast, which is our green hero award, because it is something that we've really thought about at Electrify. And we know that when it comes to the emissions over and over a lifetime of a car, a lot of those are made in the manufacturing process. And of course, the longer you can keep cars for on the roads, the better, because we need to we need to use things as much as we can. So we created this Green Hero Award, didn't we, Tom? So do you want to just explain, Tom, what that is? Because you do it so much better than me.
Well, we look at it in the manufacturing process. So we know that there are certain electric cars that might be very efficient when they're being used, but they're shipped from China and you don't know where the materials have come from. And at the same time, there are certain manufacturers, and BMW was the first one we looked at, where they do things like lots of recycling. They get the energy from solar panels and from wind turbines. They take their water from a river rather than shipping it in, and then they make sure it's clean when it goes back in. And we just felt that they were doing all these things and they weren't getting any credit for it from customers or from the media. So we got some other experts in to make sure we weren't having the wool pulled over our eyes to look at these manufacturing processes and to say, yeah, that's absolutely kosher. They're absolutely doing these things for real, and it's making a difference. So it's I think vitally important, and I hope that kind of the legislation in future takes that into account as well, and they get some sort of tax breaks or something.
I don't know if you know this as well about BMW, but little things like, when they do car shows, like say you go to Goodwood, like Festival of Speed or Revival or whatever. When I had a lovely chat with Helen, who works at BMW while I was at Goodwood, and their whole setup, everything that they had was all completely recyclable. Everything was eco-friendly, down to the plants that they were using will be replanted. The wood that they were using is being reused for something. Everything was all being reused, and everything had been thought about in the entire area that they were using, which I thought was just a really nice thing to think about. That they weren't banging on about it. It was just one of those moments that I went, isn't this lovely? And then she told me about it. But they didn't they didn't preach it, but they were doing it because they should be doing it, and that's it, which I thought was really nice.
I mean, they are doing it. More companies should be doing it. The sad thing is that when we first gave out that award, and we worked with Andy Palmer, who great industry figure, and we worked with the consultancy EY on that. We only gave it to 2 car companies. We gave it to Nissan for the Leaf for its production up in Sunderland, and we gave it to BMW. And there's actually a third company now has got it. Citroen actually got it for the Ollie concept car because of just what that was doing, which was so groundbreaking about using recycled materials and really thinking about the future life of the car. But I think we're hearing it more, that, aren't we, Batch? I'm sure in the conversations you have with people, you're hearing them talking much more, aren't you, about the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why what you're doing with the Green Award is so important, because it is very much the in thing at the moment. Every car manufacturer is talking about net zero. There's fewer emissions at their factories, all of these things. And the problem is there are probably some very important messages that people are saying, but it's just lost in this sort of just this shout of everybody saying, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I think there are probably a few car makers who are probably just tweaking the truth a little bit in some instances. So, and as I'm sure you've discovered, it's very difficult to cut through a lot of the noise and actually get to the true facts. So it is really important, because I know plenty of people who they are considering choosing an electric car, but they want it to be the most sustainable option. If they're going to make this leap, they're going to really change what they're buying next time round, and they're going to change their lifestyle. They want it to be a step for the better. They want it to be a change for the better. So it's really interesting at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It is. So any final thoughts from anyone? What are you all up to over the next week before we come back next Friday? Anything exciting going on? Tom, what are you
Monday,
up to?
I'm off to Germany to go and drive the new Corsa E on Monday.
Ooh,
So that'll be nice.
That will be nice. Tom, what are you up to next week?
No, I'm chained to the desk next week. No, chained to the desk. Well, I've got my area back, so I'm happy.
You'll be kissing it and hugging it.
I'll be cleaning it.
Oh, bless Tom. You sent my car back cleaned. That was such a nice thing to do. He might not love my Enyaq, but he sent it back to me in a much more pristine condition that it was dropped off with him.
It was a bit of a health hazard, so I had to.
Well, I think on that note, we will wrap up this episode of the Kilowatt Half Hour. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you're not already, please do subscribe because it does make a difference. And then you also know when all our latest videos have landed. But from all of us for this week, goodbye. See you soon.